Yeah, before I speak to my prepared remarks, I do want to say something about what's happening in the Ukraine right now, because I think I want to correct something that I'm hearing here. Yes, I see the same facts you see, what's happened in the last 3 days. However, I have a different view of what's happening. I think this uh, uh, counterattack by Ukraine is going to end up being one of the great military blunders you'll ever see, and will be viewed that way. So I just want to, say that because uh, I see too much on the Facebook and everybody. People, there's this panic. It, hold your breath. Okay, now to my comments. Comrades, every person on this planet will be affected by the current world military crisis in the Ukraine and Taiwan. We are on the verge of World War III. We have to see it that way. The threat of World War III is why I'm here, I hope while you're here, and why you people are watching this forum. But my question is, where is the worldwide communist movement at this critical moment in human history? Why are they not participating on this panel? Mass anti-NATO demonstrations are already beginning in Europe. Why are these parties absent from this forum? Why aren't they creating public support for Russia and the Donbass in this fight to defeat US-sponsored fascism and NATO? Russia has hit the fascists in the mouth, but these communists have run the other way, often using pacifist slogans in this critical moment. We are in a new Zimmerwald moment in history where a new communist leadership in the mass struggle must be created. We hope that we can be a part of that creative process. The big question for today is, what is the main target of US-led imperialism in the Ukraine? The answer, the target is China, not Russia. China's historic rise as a worker state, no matter what internal problems China may have, is a beacon of hope for the workers and the oppressed around the world, and a huge nightmare for US-led imperialism. We are Marxists. We recognize that economics is the driving force of history. At the end of World War II, the GDP of the USA was 50%, half of the entire world's GDP. US imperialism's economic base at the end of World War II gave it the economic, military, and political control over the capitalist market as it initiated the Cold War to defeat communism, using these three weapons. One, US imperialism created the World Bank and the IMF with the dollar equated to gold to be the economic base of control of the world capitalist market. Two, US imperialism created military alliances such as NATO to be the military base of control of the world capitalist market. Three, the US imperialism created the United Nations as its political instrument for control of the world capitalist market. The world capitalist market even then dominated the USSR and Eastern Europe back then, and continues to dominate the current worker states, including China. There can be no escape from the capitalist market, be it in New York City or Beijing or Havana. However, China's economic rise is challenging US imperialism's control of that capitalist market, that world capitalist market. Why? Because today China's industrial base is more than double the industrial base of the USA. Let that fact sink in. US-led imperialism has offshored a good portion of its industrial base in its relentless seeking of greater profits. A good portion of that is in China. As a result, US imperialism has created the very rope in China with which to hang themselves. Only recently has it dawned on the vampires running the capitalist system that China's rise is an immediate threat to the very existence of US-led imperialism. The immediate purpose of the US-NATO proxy war in the Ukraine was a failed attempt to isolate China by splitting Russia from China, but it did the very opposite. The war brought Russia and China closer together. The war has also proved to the colonial world that US imperialism is crumbling. The global South, victims of US-led oppression, are now beating a path to Beijing and to Moscow, seeking liberation from the US imperialist vampire. The current sanctions placed on Russia has speeded up the collapse of US-led imperialism's power. Class struggle inside Europe and inside the United States is beginning to break out. Worker anger, however, will need to be focused on the real enemy. That is our job, comrades. As a result of their defeat in the Ukraine, US-led imperialism now faces two choices. One, accept. Okay, got that? Okay. One, accept a surrender of world leadership to the Chinese worker state, or two, start World War III now. 5 years from now will be too late. China's economic rate of growth will eliminate any possibility of a military victory for US-led imperialism if the war is long delayed. There is no middle choice between those two choices. It is war or surrender. Which of the above choices US-led imperialism takes, we can only guess at. According to Larry Johnson, a retired US military official, there is a US naval officer in charge of the Pacific Fleet determined to create a provocation in order to start World War III. Question, doesn't the Pentagon control that US naval officer? Yes, but all capitalist ruling classes are a coalition of competing capitalist groups. The US president and the US government is just the executive board of these competing parasitic interests. Too many comrades have a simplistic view of the ruling class, as if that class is united. It isn't. It is only united against us. Within these parasites, there is no consensus over starting World War III. However, some sections of the capitalist rulers have more influence over the military than others. A big section of the ruling class, even if it is a minority, wants war now and has great influence within the military leadership. These US military commanders are no different than the military leaders who do coups d'etats in other countries. Do you really think that Donald Trump and the Republican Party would oppose a coup? They already tried one on January 6, 2020. The US Navy, as with the UK imperialist Navy of a century ago, is the most right-wing, the most aggressive, the most arrogant, and the most elitist, and the most warmongering part of the US imperialist military. The UK and US naval armadas are the definition of gunboat diplomacy. The war in the Ukraine has demonstrated that in a land war, the US NATO alliance would lose to Russia, let alone China. The US Navy is the only portion of the US military that is more powerful than the Navy of Russia and China. All the capitalist vampires' hopes are with the US naval armada as their possible savior. We must not underestimate the danger to the world that we face today. That is why the communist movement must begin the process of unification in creating militant public demonstrations in support of Russia and China. There is no other option for the workers and the oppressed of the world. Either we win or the capitalist vampires win. The fate of humanity is in our hands, apparently. We need a world network to coordinate our response. So join us. And my question, which side are you on? With communist unity, we can and will win. Power to the people.